Hello folks, welcome to your basic painting class for beginners. Today we're going to work on a background, try to make it a little interesting, fun, and then we're going to put a sunflower on there and maybe some wheat stalks. We'll just see how the flow goes. All right, all I'm working on is just a thin piece of board. I've got quite a few of these, and we're going to start off with a 1-inch brush. Always dampen your brush slightly before you put paint on your project. Again, when you're, I can't stress this enough, when you dampen your brush, you wipe it off on the paper towel or a towel that you're using. Always be sure that this area here is dry. Sometimes you'll get drops of water here, and when you go to paint, you know, that water flows down. All right, we are going to do a little bit of turquoise. We're going to do a little bit of yellow, hopefully down here so it doesn't turn green or blue. Let's do a little bit of white, and we're going to do a little bit of brown. Let's just see how this turns out. Come on, there we go. Now, before the paint dries, I'll quickly tell you this. Because of the contrasted colors, as I'm working one area, I am going to rinse my brush and start working another area and then blend them together. That's the plan. We'll see how it goes. And when you're doing brush strokes, you really don't want ridges of paint. If you notice, like, there's some ridges there of paint. So try to get those brush strokes to just let that paint flow totally out to the edge. All right. Since this is white, I'm not going to clean my brush, sorry, because this will still make a difference by having turquoise and white on my paintbrush. We'll go right back up in there, bring some of that white up in there, in that turquoise area. Getting the edges and then flow back over. Again, I know sometimes I'm moving my hand too quick, but these are just short strokes back and forth. Just makes everything flow better. The paint is going to start to dry. I'm going to rinse my brush. Dry it off. Grab some of this yellow, and I've got a little paint thing there. Oh, goodness gracious. I'm gonna let this yellow go right into that brown. Those little clogs of brown paint is in yellow. I don't know what the deal is with my paints. I think they're getting, some of them are getting a little bit old. Okay, for me to blend this into the turquoise and not lose all the turquoise, I need to rinse my brush. So rinse the brush, dry it off, make sure there's no water here. Yeah, the paint's starting to dry pretty quick. And get some of those brush strokes straightened out a little bit. Grab a little bit of water. You see these brush strokes there? It's starting to dry, but if I wet my paintbrush, put a little water on it, I can get that to move. Even though acrylic paint does dry pretty quick, it is, to me, fun to work with. You learn how to move quickly and get your project done before it fully dries. Now, looking at it, making sure I have good coverage. It looks like I've got missing a little bit of paint right here with the turquoise. So I'm gonna drop a little bit there. And again, this is just another way of painting a background. There's so many different ways that you could do this. Put a little paint on there. Cover up my thumbprint I put on there. Now, wet my brush a little bit. And we're going to blend that into that brown. Just by quick brush strokes back and forth. Now, if I'm happy with this, we stop here, we let it dry. And then we apply the sunflower pattern. And this, today, I am going to draw it out. I'll show you how to do that. You know what, I kind of like that. Adding just a smidge of well, it's easy for me to say, a smidge of turquoise over here to the side into that brown. Just little quick strokes, just to give it a little something. There's so many things you can do to play with your paintings. This is the fun part. And if it doesn't turn out the way you like, just paint over it. There are going to be times when you have achieved a painting and it's going very, very smoothly and you're loving it, and then all of a sudden you just make some big mistake on it. And for a lot of us artists, when that happens, we get frustrated. We feel like we've just wasted all our time, and a lot of times you put the project up and sometimes don't even finish it. I suggest you don't let that happen to yourself, because, again, in this day and age, almost anything goes. So you have a little mistake. Either go over it with paint or apply something else to the picture that covers that mistake. And a lot of these make great gifts. People that don't paint, don't want to paint, have no desire to paint, they do appreciate welcome signs, little signs that they can put in their kitchen, and they make nice little gifts. Okay, we're going to let this dry for a minute. I'll be back. Okay, I do believe it is nice and dry. I took a moment to grab a painting. Here is a sunflower painting I've done a while back, and all I did was use, I made a paint stain out of brown acrylic paint, And the way you do a stain with acrylic paint is just water that paint down a lot, and then you can stain over wood. So this is the dark brown background, not a big deal, and a different kind of sunflower. Okay, so using the skinny little brush, you can use a script brush. This is, of course, a mid-liner. And I am going to use a mixture of a little bit of brown, all I'm doing is making what I'm going to use to draw the outline of the sunflower. So yellow, white, and brown is my mixture. You can just even use just black if you wanted to. And again, using my little stir brush and with a little bit of paint. See, a little bit of paint, which we'll probably do more because of that white in there. All I'm doing is just kind of making a light, or I would say probably a medium brown. And because I'm going to be drawing with this, we're going to water that down a little bit more. Grab a little bit more water. You can draw it out if you want to with a number 2 pencil, or you can apply a pattern. Again, you fill up your brush with paint. Make sure you don't have any water on there. Fill up your brush with paint, twirl it off, and you got a nice point. Okay. Of course, a good old sunflower is going to have a nice round center. And my center is not perfectly round, but it will work. One thing about drawing with paint, if you need to straighten anything up, because you're going to fill it in, it's just like coloring. You're going to fill it in. And then you stop where it looks good to you. That's probably blended in a lot. Hopefully you can see it. All right, now I'm going to do my petals, which is get some paint on your brush, twirl it off. And all we're doing is, if you think about it, it's kind of a leaf shape on the skinny side. I probably need to darken this paint just a little bit more so you can see it better. Adding a little bit more brown. I just added a little bit more brown to the side there. Put a little bit of water in it. We're going to darken that just a little bit more so it's a little easier to see. Fill up your paintbrush, twirl it off. Okay, so I've got a petal here. I'm going to put one down here. You can either think of leaves, the shape of a leaf, or a rabbit's ear. I'm going to put one at 3 o'clock. Put one over here at on the other side. And if you notice when you're putting your petals in that maybe one is shorter than the other, that's okay. You can fix it. All right, I'm gonna start filling in the gaps here. This sunflower's ending up a little bit bigger than what I planned, but that's okay. We're gonna go with it. Adding in the petals. We don't have to have them all perfect. Every now and then I'll grow a sunflower outside that turns out just absolutely perfect, but that's rare. There's always some kind of bug damage or something. or one of the cats used it as a scratching post. That's always fun. If you notice, this petal here could be a little bit longer. So what I'll do is I'll come in about midway and then bring it out a little bit more. All right, there's a good gap there, so we'll come in, add another one. And usually the petals, I've got them a little bit too pointed. A lot of times the petals of a sunflower is rounded off, so we'll fix that. But they start out narrow, they come out a little wide, and then they go narrow again. Yeah, we're gonna round those off just a little bit, just because I'm being picky this morning. So if you just go around it, you can round those petals off. Here's one here. Now this is a little close, so what I'm gonna do is just let this next petal be underneath these two here. So I made the start here, come out right there. Same thing with this one. Have it come out about right there. And we need to curve that one off a little bit. And again, you can turn your project when it's small pieces of like wood or canvas. It does help. Again, a little bit down and towards the center. And coming out from the other petal. Round that off. Rounding off that one. Let's see, we got one more to go. This is going to be hard to see because it's in a lot of the brown. Well, that's a fat one. That's okay. We'll let it be fat. All right, I'm just gonna basically glance over it and see if there's any of them that need to be straightened out a little bit. This one could be just a little bit longer. Okay, there we go. There's your sunflower. While I'm at it, I'm gonna go ahead and use that same brown and put the stem in. Although the stem's gonna end up being green, just kind of reminds me to do that. We can also go ahead and go into the stem a little bit and add a nice big leaf. I don't know what the deal is today. I am pointing a lot. There we go. That looks a little bit better. We might end up putting another leaf up that direction. There's a gnat in here. Okay, so we're going to work with the same rule of thumb on the past videos. We're going to start off with, of course, a little bit of yellow and add some white to it. That way it covers the background. I'm holding it off to the side a little bit so I can keep that pure yellow, and then use this yellow white to do my base coat of the petals. We'll do the center of the sunflower when we start to do the stem and the leaf. All right, grabbing my number 5 round brush. How did I have that happen? Got a little bit of paint on my brushes somehow. Okay, using that, a round brush, number 5 is what I'm using. Fill it up with the yellow and white. And come in and just paint over your dark brown line. This is a pretty quick process usually to get all your petals painted. Quick strokes, little short quick strokes. And again, petals don't have to be perfect. I say this more for myself than anybody else. Okay, let's do another one. Now these are touching one another, so you don't lose the shape of them. You can grab a little bit of that brown, and let's say this petal is going to be underneath these 2 petals. So I put a little bit of that brown on my dirty yellow brush. Go back to the yellow and white. And we're just going to do quick brush strokes to fill in that petal. And we'll enhance the shadow area of some of these petals as we progress. But for now, adding a touch of brown right there is going to help me remember that this petal here is underneath this one as well as this one. Again, filling up the brush with paint. When you have a great brush, guys, I'm telling you, the struggle is very, very small, because you can lightly get the edges so nicely. Okay, we'll do one more. Now this one is underneath that one, so I'm going to grab a little bit of brown paint, place it there, so don't forget there's going to be a shadow there. Fill up my brush, and it's a dirty brush. I'm not washing it in between application. But again, you want small strokes. You don't really want ridges of paint. So you just make them nice and short little strokes to fill it all in. Okay, we have all the petals filled in. I kind of noticed I've got skinny petals over here and fat petals over there. That's okay. We're gonna go with it. All right, now this part is, you could go back over each petal again to get perfect coverage of the yellow-white color. But in this case, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna go with yellow and white. That's gonna be the top of the petal, so it's brighter, it's closer to the light or the sun. We'll do a little regular yellow right about the middle. And then grab a little bit of that brown, that mixture of brown, white, and yellow, and we're gonna put that right about at the base. Okay? It's also gonna be our shadow color. I am cleaning my brush, and what I'm gonna do is just stroke the yellow, the light again, we're blending, but this time we're not using a pouncing brush. So we're moving the yellow into that brown. And just lightly go over it. We don't want to lose that brown. It needs to have that little tint of brown going on. Again, we'll start off with the yellow and white. We'll use plain yellow next to right about the middle. Because this petal is underneath this petal, I want to be sure I take a little bit of that brown, put it right to the side of that petal, because that is very much the shadow area. Grabbed a little bit more yellow. Wipe my brush off. And I'm just going to lightly stroke that brown area into that yellow. I think we need to do it just a little bit more. I'm gonna come at it a different direction. And just lightly go over that area. I don't want to lose that shadow area at all. So it's just a light stroke. That's all it is. All right, we're going to do the same thing with this one. I'm doing the yellow white at the top. We're going to wipe the brush off and just grab. Now, I'm not washing the brush, I'm just wiping it off since we're dealing with yellow. And we're going to use the medium yellow right here in the middle. Wipe my brush off. We're going to do a little bit of the brown at the bottom. Wipe my brush. Now take a little bit of that yellow down into that brown. Just get a little bit of a difference there. Okay, let's do another one. Now this petal is under both, so we're going to have a lot more brown as a shadow color there. So I'm just taking the yellow white, fill in the petal, a little bit of yellow right there. Wipe my brush, grab a little bit of that brown. And you're basically outlining first by adding the brown. Wipe your brush. And just lightly stroke that area. Now you want to wash your brush off. Grab a little bit of that yellow and go down into that brown to just make that disappear a little bit. If you find you have brush strokes up here, you can, again, wipe your brush off and gently move those. So see, you're starting to get that kind of that dingy brown look at the base that's going to be close to the center. Again, we're going to fill in another petal with the light yellow. Grab a little bit of the regular yellow. Easy for me to say. I think I need more coffee. The base is going to be a little bit of brown. Wipe your brush. Go to, starting from the light yellow, work your way down into the regular yellow. Go right on into that brown. You see that mark there? Just rinse your brush off and just stroke over that while everything is still wet. Wiping my brush off. Just lightening that up by barely touching it. Okay. Okay, I've got all the petals painted. I've added that light brown that was in the background on the palette. Actually, excuse me, I used more of the dark brown. Light brown was on the palette, and I mixed a little bit more brown to that light. So I finished off the petals, and I added the little bit of brown in mixing with the yellow, so it gives it a little bit of definition as well. It does very, very well using it as a shadow. Like this petal is shadowing this one. Okay, now you could just stop here, clean up your lines a little bit, and start on the center. But you know we're not going to do that. We are going to enhance a little bit more. So I'm going to take each petal at a time, and we are going to go back over it again with a little bit of this yellow that's been mixed with white and a little bit of water. So it's got a really good consistency of, I know I probably changed that term from time to time, but it is like a loose gravy. That's the best way I know how to explain it. Not too much water, but not too thick either. Okay, working on this petal here. I'm going to come in, make sure I catch the outline that I had done in that brown. Fill in that yellow one more time. Wipe my brush off. There's no need to wash it. Grab a little bit of that medium brown color. I'm gonna put a little bit at the base. I added orange, just plain old orange to my palette. So I'm gonna do some orange right above that brown. Now I'm gonna rinse my brush and dry it. Make sure there's no water. And just brush light strokes between the yellow and the orange, and then go on down into that brown. And if it crosses over into the center part, that's okay, because the center will go on last. Wipe my brush off. And now I'm just pulling those strokes back up to where I am happy with the look. So you end up with partially a yellow petal with a tad bit of orange and a little bit of dark brown at the base. Let's do that again. Gotta get a little close here to make sure I'm catching my edge. Using that light yellow, catching the edge where I originally did the petal in that light brown. Grab a little orange. Grab a little bit of that brown. Not much, just a little bit. You'll see why that brown is added there again here in a minute. And that is a perfect mistake. It's way too much. So I rinse my brush. I'm going to come down, pull a little bit of that paint off, grab a little bit of that yellow and white, and go back down over it just a bit, just to tone that down a little bit. I rinse my brush. Now with just little short strokes, So what looked like a disaster, gone. Grab a little bit of that light yellow and white mixture, and we want to highlight this side of the petal because it is overlapping that side. So we want that petal on that side there to pop a little bit more. Same thing on the opposite side. So I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow white. Rinse my brush, dry it, and just touch it lightly. I don't want to lose that brown. But when you're painting, it's really about where you're comfortable with it. It's like, okay, I'll stop there. That's one of the hardest things I think I probably had to learn is when to stop. I guess we all go through that, don't we? When to quit messing with something, because you'll be so happy with it, you'll add something to it, and you're like, it looked better before. It's okay. You have plenty of paint. So let's do the next one. Now this one is underneath both, so it's going to be a little bit darker petal. Let's see if I'm catching that line there. Yes. Okay. Adding the yellow white. Going down just a little bit. Wipe off my brush, no need to wash. Add a little bit of the orange tint. And a tad bit of that brown. Not much, because it's already dark in that area. Rinse my brush. Now light to the dark. We're going to just stroke, small strokes down to the orange. Taking that yellow down, and then down to that brown. And it might be hard to see it on camera, but the orange tint is very faint, but you can still see it. It just gives the flower, cuts all that monotony of just yellow. This one here, it's got that big brown spot on it. I just take my yellow white, and I can just go right over that. Rinse my brush, dry it, and just barely tap through there. We don't want to lose that brown. But it got rid of the really dark spot there. All right, the next one is over this one. So we want to be sure that highlight shows up there on the edge. So starting with the yellow white. Let's see if I'm getting close enough. Yeah, yellow white right there. Wipe my brush. A little bit of orange. Wipe my brush. Tad bit of brown. Oops. Starting from the light to the dark. Bring it down that yellow a little bit. Stroke down to the orange. And then down to the brown. Just dance it around a little bit. Going the opposite way to break it up a little. Wipe my brush. Okay. Now I'm going to finish the rest of these petals and come right back.